Welcome to a new episode from the Curiosity Lab. Stop right there. Before you hit play, you probably had to decide, should I watch this or should I doom scroll Twitter? Or maybe check that urgent work email that popped up 3 seconds ago. And if you chose this video, you made a good decision. But here's the problem. You've just used up precious mental currency on something that shouldn't even be a choice. Think about your morning. You woke up. Did you check your phone before you stood up? That was the first choice. Then coffee or tea? Which brand of coffee? What to wear from a closet bursting with options? Should you take the easy route to work or the scenic route with potential traffic stress? Should you hit snooze again, overriding your initial impulse to be productive? By the time you sit down at your desk, ready for your first real task, something important, something that actually requires critical thinking, your brain is already running on fumes. You feel foggy, irritable, and suddenly, checking social media seems far more appealing than doing that complex spreadsheet. This isn't laziness. This isn't a moral failing. This is science. We are living in an era defined by overwhelming digital abundance, and our Stone Age brains are simply breaking down. The title of this episode is Decision Overload: Why Your Brain Shuts Down. And today we are diving deep into the psychology, neuroscience, and behavioral economics of why infinite choice makes you feel totally useless by 3 p.m. We're going to diagnose the problem using the powerful analogy of your decision budget. We'll look at what happens when that budget hits zero, hello, impulse buys and procrastination, and most importantly, we'll give you the science-backed strategies to replenish your mental bank and become the ruthless decision-making machine you were meant to be. Are you ready to stop feeling paralyzed by possibility? Great, let's head into the modern minefield.
But before we begin, have you ever felt physically exhausted after a long day of meetings, even though you just sat in a chair? We'll reveal the biological marker scientists use to measure that invisible mental sweat and what it proves about the true cost of thinking. Stay tuned for the shutdown.
The core idea we're discussing today is known in social psychology as ego depletion. It proposes that self-regulation, your ability to control your impulses, focus your attention, and make thoughtful long-term choices, relies on a limited energy resource. We are calling this the decision budget. When the term ego depletion was first introduced, it captivated social psychology, suggesting that this single central resource underlies a vast array of seemingly different self-control behaviors, from resisting chocolate to resisting aggression. It posits that every act of self-control taps the same source of mental strength. The location of this limited resource in your brain? Primarily the prefrontal cortex, PFC. This amazing piece of gray matter is the brain's executive suite. It's responsible for everything complex and intentional: reason, logic, problem solving, planning, and keeping you focused. When you decide to resist an immediate urge like hitting snooze, your PFC initiates what's called the pause and plan response, sending extra energy to override that impulse. But here is the critical part. This executive function capacity is finite. Doing things that engage the PFC, such as difficult mental tasks or simply making a lot of choices, negatively impacts your willpower. If you use energy on one task, you have less mental energy available for others. This is the foundation of the strength model of self-control. Willpower is like a muscle. When you use it, it gets temporarily exhausted from the effort. Now let's combine ego depletion with another crucial concept: cognitive load theory. CLT. CLT explains how your learning and decision-making suffer when the required mental processing exceeds your brain's capacity, specifically your working memory. Think of working memory as your mental workbench. It has a tiny capacity, about 7 plus or minus 2 items, the space where you temporarily hold and manipulate information to make decisions. When we are constantly exposed to fragmented information, notifications, and multitasking, this imposes what is called extraneous cognitive load. Digital environments are cognitive load monsters. Constant digital engagement fragments your attention, reducing your sustained focus. Every time you switch tasks, bouncing from an email draft to a Slack message to a text notification, you incur a cognitive switch cost. This draining process reduces productivity. Digital media itself contributes massively to this load. Notifications and excessive online exposure increase cognitive fatigue. The algorithms are designed to hold your attention, reinforcing attentional bias and selective exposure.
The biggest modern drain on your decision budget isn't just notifications. It's the sheer volume of available options, the paradox of choice. Digital commerce promised to free us from the constraints of the physical world by offering infinite inventory. But our brains evolved to choose between a handful of options, not an endless scroll. This cognitive mismatch is demonstrated by groundbreaking research. In one classic study, the famous jam study, consumers saw either 24 varieties of jam or just 6. While the larger display drew in 60% more people to sample, the smaller selection converted 30% of browsers into buyers compared to only 3% for the enormous selection. We are drawn to abundance, but we are paralyzed by sheer weight. This is decision fatigue in action. Research shows that after comparing more than 7 to 9 product options, shoppers experience measurable cognitive fatigue. Their satisfaction decreases, and the likelihood of them abandoning the whole process and their cart increases exponentially. Now, in the spirit of the Curiosity Lab, we have to talk about the latest science. The specific theory of ego depletion, while intuitively appealing and supported in hundreds of early studies, has become highly controversial. Due to replication failures and large multi-site tests, some researchers now question whether the effect is genuinely about a drained, limited resource in the classic muscle model sense. Some modern views suggest that depletion isn't just about incapacity, running out of fuel, but about motivation, a diminished willingness to exert effort because the brain shifts priorities away from effortful control. Regardless of whether the fuel tank is literally empty or whether your brain is just deciding that effort is too costly right now, the practical outcome is the same. Your ability to make sharp, intentional decisions declines after prolonged effort. This phenomenon is akin to mental fatigue, which is strongly supported across cognitive and sports science literature. Willpower, whether a limited resource or a limited motivation, is compromised by chronic stress, long-term exertion, and simple tiredness. So, the decision budget analogy stands. You have finite, complex mental capacity, and modern life is engineered to spend it all before lunch. If too many choices make us miserable, what do? Simple. We look at the neuroscience of impulsive buying and how companies like Apple and Amazon deliberately reduce your cognitive friction to make you click, buy, and subscribe without thinking. What happens when your decision budget is officially exhausted? The consequences of an empty tank manifest in 3 main ways: analysis paralysis, impulse actions, and a profound degradation of decision quality across professional and personal life. Analysis paralysis versus impulse actions. Decision fatigue creates 2 seemingly opposite yet equally damaging behaviors. Decision paralysis: you become so overwhelmed by choice that you're unable to make any decision at all. This arises from cognitive overload and the fear of making the wrong choice, leading to indifference or deferring the decision indefinitely. Impulsivity. Conversely, sometimes you just opt for the fastest, easiest choice to end the mental effort regardless of the consequences. This leads to reliance on heuristics, default options, and crucially, impulse buys. This shift is rooted in Kahneman's dual process theory. Your brain has 2 operating modes. System 1, fast, intuitive, emotional, and automatic thinking. This is your default when tired or overwhelmed. Digital media often favors System 1 thinking, leading to impulse-driven interactions. System 2, slow, analytical, deliberate, and effortful thinking. This is the critical thinking system required for complex tasks. When your decision budget is depleted, your brain defaults to the low-cost path. System 1. The neurobiology of the crash. The switch to System 1 isn't just conceptual, it's visible in your neurology. When the PFC is worn out, its control over the regions of the brain that create cravings and the stress response weakens. you start exhibiting impulsive intertemporal choice, meaning you favor an inferior but more immediate reward over a larger but delayed reward. For example, when attempting to choose healthy food, a study found that the activity in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, DLFPC, influenced the activity in the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, VMFPC, the area related to the subjective value of the chosen option, but only when the dieters successfully chose the healthy food, resisting temptation. When the DLFPC is impaired by stress or exhaustion, it loses this modulation. Impulsive behavior in perceptual decision-making can be mathematically modeled by a speed-accuracy trade-off. When you're exhausted, your internal cognitive threshold is set too low, causing movements or choices to be triggered more quickly, even if the result is error-prone. You prioritize speed over accuracy. A classic experiment demonstrated this perfectly in the context of food. Participants who had to remember a challenging 7-digit number, high cognitive load, were 50% more likely to choose cake over fruit salad compared to those remembering an easy 2-digit number. High cognitive load directly led to reduced self-control in food choice, overriding the conscious goal of healthy eating.
Decision fatigue in the real world. This fatigue isn't just about buying socks or choosing dessert. It has profound, high-stakes implications. 1. Healthcare quality. Physicians make numerous complex decisions daily under time pressure and with limited information. Willpower depletion in healthcare workers is a documented concern, potentially adverse impact in clinical decision-making and patient care. Studies show decision quality can decline with time at work. 2. Financial vulnerability. When mental resources are low, individuals become more prone to impulse buying. This effect is particularly acute for those with limited opportunities, such as poor individuals, where complex decisions involving significant trade-offs constantly drain their mental energy. 3. Moral judgment. Studies suggest that limiting cognitive resources through manipulations like cognitive load or ego depletion can influence moral judgments about sacrificial dilemmas. While the results are nuanced and the overall pooled effect did not reach statistical significance in a recent meta-analysis, the premise is that inhibiting type 2 analytical processing reduces consequentialist responses. In essence, when exhausted, our deliberate moral reasoning may struggle. The sweat of mental effort. How do scientists confirm that this exhaustion is real even when self-reports are unreliable? By measuring the unconscious response, physiological arousal. Research on cognitive load in leadership demonstrates a strong positive correlation between increased cognitive load during a task and heightened physiological arousal. This arousal is measured using galvanic skin response, GSR, which tracks the electrical conductance of the skin, essentially measuring invisible mental sweat. Interestingly, leaders with lower GSR, less physiological arousal, during decision-making were more likely to be using the analytical System 2 thinking. Furthermore, researchers found that leadership experience negatively correlated with perceived cognitive load. Why? Experienced leaders develop familiarity, enabling them to identify relevant information more efficiently, making the decision process less taxing. So, your mental sweat is real, your budget is limited, and the crash shifts your brain from careful deliberation to impulsive reaction. But we can fight back. We've established that more effort means more exhaustion. But what if the secret to overcoming depletion isn't just resting, but training? Next, we'll show you how to become a willpower athlete using scientifically proven techniques like mindfulness and strategic automation to increase your stamina and efficiency. The good news is that willpower is not a static trait. It's a mind-body response that can be strengthened. You can become a willpower athlete. The solution involves 3 main strategies: offloading choices to conserve the budget, training the brain to increase the capacity, and optimizing deliberation to improve the quality of remaining decisions. Strategy 1. Offloading choices, the conservation model. Since the core problem is that every choice depletes your finite resource, the simplest solution is to stop relying on willpower for trivial things. A. Automate and habitualize. The goal is to move common tasks out of the effortful PFC and into automatic habit territory. Habits require little or no willpower. Establishing routines and automating repetitive tasks radically reduces the extraneous cognitive load associated with everyday choices. Routine creation, develop daily routines for activities like meal planning or exercise, or automate bill payments. Default options, adopt a standard wardrobe or streamline morning preparations to eliminate decision-making entirely. This minimizes the need for active decision-making. B. Strategic curation and choice architecture. The paradox of choice shows that abundance is paralyzing. The successful modern solution is curation, deliberately limiting the visible options presented to you or allowing algorithms to do the filtering. This is known as choice architecture. The rule of 7. Cognitive limits suggests shoppers experience fatigue after 7 to 9 options. Successful platforms like Amazon often limit recommendations, like the customers who bought this item also bought section, to 4 to 6 products, staying within your cognitive comfort zone. Progressive disclosure. Complexity should only be revealed when users specifically seek it. Companies like Apple simplify the initial view to the essential choice, System 1 friendly, only revealing additional complexity like color or storage after the primary decision is made, System 2 engagement. Delegation of decisions. You can pay someone else to navigate complexity, as demonstrated by the success of companies like Stitch Fix, which completely removes the initial choice burden from the customer. At home, delegate household decisions to distribute the cognitive load. Strategy 2. Training the brain. The willpower athlete. If willpower is like a metaphorical muscle, we can train it for greater strength, stamina, and resilience. Long-term practice of effortful control has been shown to result in durable improvements, referred to as the strengthening of effortful control capacity. This means that over time, what starts out difficult becomes easier. Research points to 2 highly effective, non-generic methods for strengthening the brain's willpower reserve. A. Physical exercise. Regular physical exercise, including both intense cardiovascular training and mindful exercise like yoga, fundamentally changes the brain and body to support self-control. It makes the brain and body more resilient to stress. Furthermore, chronic exercise has been shown to increase the efficiency of brain regions involved in the salience network and executive control network. This increased efficiency is evidenced by a decrease in the activation of areas like the PFC during cognitive tasks after training, suggesting the brain is achieving the same or better performance with less energetic cost. This supports the idea that training increases capacity, allowing you to exert more effortful control with less energy. B. Mindfulness meditation. Meditation training enhances a wide range of willpower skills, including attention, focus, stress management, impulse control, and self-awareness. Regular meditators show measurable brain changes. They often have more gray matter in the prefrontal cortex. These structural and functional changes have been observed after just 8 weeks of brief daily practice. This mental training is a crucial component of cognitive resilience training, which can help counteract digital distractions. Strategy 3. Optimizing deliberation. For the important, high-stakes decisions you must make, you need to ensure you utilize your analytical System 2 thinking. A. Protect your peak time. The research shows willpower decreases over the course of the day. This is often because the prefrontal cortex is tired after thinking all day, and blood sugar levels drop. Schedule your major decisions, the ones that require comprehensive analysis and critical thinking, for when your resources are at their peak, typically in the morning. B. Engage System 2 explicitly. System 2 thinking is characterized by careful reassessment and deliberate reasoning. Leaders who prioritize this approach are more likely to make decisions grounded in objective assessments and thorough evaluations, leading to superior decision quality. The application of System 2 thinking has been shown to predict a significant portion of the variance in decision quality. To engage this, curate information intake.
Strategies like filtering information and designing streamlined interfaces can mitigate digital overload effects. Strengthen digital literacy. Recognize algorithmic bias and misinformation by strengthening critical thinking and digital literacy skills. AI-driven content often reinforces confirmation bias and limits exposure to diverse perspectives. We must actively seek out balanced content and diverse viewpoints to prevent polarization. Take breaks. Regularly scheduled rest periods help recharge cognitive resources and prevent mental exhaustion. By combining physical and mental training to boost capacity, the Willpower athlete model, with strategic choice architecture to conserve effort, you can effectively manage the decision overload that plagues modern life. We started this journey overwhelmed, believing that feeling drained after a day of nonstop choices was just the price of modern living. But we learned the truth. Your brain isn't broken, it's simply exhausted from constantly paying the cognitive costs of our hyper-digital, choice-saturated world. We learned that self-control, whether viewed as a limited resource or a fluctuating motivation, relies on that precious decision budget anchored in your prefrontal cortex. We saw how digital technology, while often beneficial, can intentionally increase our cognitive load, pushing us from thoughtful, analytical System 2 thinking toward fast, impulsive System 1 reactions, leading to impulse purchases and low-quality choices. The solution isn't to stop living in the modern world. It's to design your environment to mitigate risks while maximizing cognitive benefits. It's about being a conscious choice architect of your own life, automating the trivial and reserving your precious mental fuel for what truly matters. And perhaps most empowering of all, we learned that through practices like physical exercise and mindfulness, we can literally build up our mental stamina, increasing our capacity to exert effortful control and achieve goals. This is the mission of the Curiosity Lab, to deconstruct the complex science that shapes our daily behavior, turning confusing problems into actionable insights. If this video helped you understand why you bought that weird impulse item last night, or why you struggled to focus on that big project this afternoon, then please like this video and share it with someone else who might be battling decision overload. Subscribing helps us continue our journey to explore the unseen scientific forces governing our lives. Until next time, keep optimizing your cognitive world and keep asking questions.